So this is going to be a recording of Chapter 9, Online Retail and Services. So basically our focus in this particular chapter is going to be talking about everything other than Amazon, because the entire Amazon case study is covered in a separate audio recording, and that case study is covered by has been created by Faber Novel, and I've covered all the details about Amazon there. However, I'll try and cover the remaining stuff in this chapter other than Amazon. So if you want to listen to about Amazon, please refer to the audio recording specifically made for Amazon. Now, the first part of this chapter, which is section 9.1, can be easily summarized in table 9.1. It actually talks about how the online retail has changed in the last few years or so. I'm not going to go into the detail of it. I'll just say that if you go online, if you just Google the fact of how many online retail of how many physical retail stores have actually shut down across the US in the 2007, that number is extremely high. Now, a lot of stores have been shutting down, and the statistics say about 5,000 stores in 2017 alone, and it includes several stores of Sears and Kmart in the US, JCPenney, lots of Macy's, lots of Payless stores, several other businesses. So a lot of physical retailers are shutting down, and the reasons are usually cited as because people are now moving more towards online retail. So the retail industry is shifting more towards online. Retail industry in the US, for instance, is based on several categories. So this can be seen in figure 9.1. The composition of the US retail industry includes general merchandise, or as we like to call it in Urdu, Karyana stores or Ration ki dukane. There are several of those. There are online retail. There's a lot of fuel related retail stores or small shops on fuel stations. The consumer durables market or appliances, food and beverage. There's a lot of mail order or telephone order ones, or motors as they are called, and specialty stores, which are specifically dedicated to specific kind of products. Online retail is our focus in this particular chapter. Now, online retail is of course related to those kind of businesses that are online, and they're selling it online. Now, there are several categories within the online retail store category itself. Online retail includes businesses that are also omni-channel. In other words, they're physical as well as online, and which in other words they are click and brick models. And there is of course pure play or virtual merchants like Amazon itself, which is online only, technically speaking. I say that technically because Amazon has recently opened up physical stores which are technically designed to be more of display centers, not exactly physical stores. Now, if you look at the revenues generated by each of the different categories for online retail, the highest is apparel and accessories, the second is computers and electronics, and third is auto parts, and fourth is books and videos and movies and stuff. So this is true for Amazon as well. This is true for most of the retail industry in general. So a lot of these retailers include, of course, Amazon and Apple and Netflix and Google Play Store. A lot of people think that Amazon is like a retail store because they sell physical stuff. That's not true. Retail, if you recall, has to do with buying something from a seller who owns the inventory. So retail includes the App Store and Amazon Store and of course Apple Store. All of these are retail store, even Netflix. So the growth of online retail in the US, as I already mentioned, is at an exponential rate. The industry is growing very rapidly, and the physical retail is disappearing slowly and gradually. So there's a lot of advantages and challenges that are faced by online retail and retail industry as a whole online. The advantage, of course, includes lower prices, lower holding costs. It's easier to reach a lot more consumers. There's a lot lowering of the cost of distribution because there are websites. You don't have to go to physical stores. The ability to reach and serve a larger market, geographically speaking. The ability to get customers, perception and customers' feedback a lot more quickly. Even if the customer is not actually actively giving it, you can actually calculate it based on what they are looking at on a website. The ability to change your prices based on your competitors, because there are lots of softwares that these websites run that keep on checking their rivals, and they can reduce or even increase when required the prices of different products. They can rapidly change the representation of different products on their website, the kind of sequence with which they show different products, the precedence of one product over the other. So basically, when you visit a web page of Amazon, it can definitely change itself based on your personal likes and dislikes and the products that you've gone through when you're window shopping. So it can show you products that are more interesting to you, that are more related to what you've purchased before or seen before. So it allows for more personalization. It allows for a lot more information to be given to the customer because there's a lot of comparison possible, there's user reviews possible, there's a lot of feedback possible, there's customer ratings of the sellers as well as of the product itself. So a lot more information on that point. The ability for consumers to actually reduce the transaction cost as a whole, because they don't have to travel anywhere, they don't have to do a lot of research, they can do it all online. The challenges include related to security and privacy, maintaining the security and privacy of consumers who are giving their credit card information, their personal payment information, their personal likes and dislikes indirectly. Protecting all of that is, of course, and the personal information is a huge challenge. Making sure that the products are delivered on time is a huge challenge. Making sure that they're delivered on time without costing you too much is an even bigger challenge. So the inconvenience related to returns of products and exchanges is also something that you have to deal with, because if you don't offer those conditions, customers are not going to be so interested in buying from you. The overall lack of consumers' trust in online market, which is very true for Pakistan, not necessarily for the rest of the world, is also an issue. But unless it's a strong brand name, people do not tend to buy online that often. So the online marketing costs are, of course, something that you have to incur, because if you're online only, that becomes problematic. The kind of representations of different products that you have to give, and making sure that you give more customer information and more offerings to the customer, giving better customer service is again an overall challenge. Now, if you look at table 9.3, it talks about the top 20 US retailers ranked by online sales. Of course, on the top, you will notice Amazon with about 79.27 billion sales, billions of dollars worth of sales in 2015 alone. It is important for me to mention that as of 2018, according to market capitalization, the topmost company is, of course, Apple, then followed by, it used to be Google or Alphabet, now it's Amazon, which means that Amazon has been able to capture a large area of the market. Remember that market capitalization is not a very good criteria of judging a company, but it is something that is looked upon. So the market share and the ability of Amazon to be able to capture its entire market is very high. Now, Amazon makes a lot more money on online sales as opposed to, say, Apple, which is a manufacturer direct. So all of the content that it sells is directly to consumers, through different channels, the books, the music and stuff. That's what it's being referred to, even the physical products. Walmart falls in with as omni-channel on number 3. Omni-channel is a term used for those kind of businesses that do online as well as offline. Omni is a word that means all directional, all possibilities. So Walmart comes third, Staples comes fourth. These are US based companies that we're talking about. So if you look at this, in online sales, Amazon is the market leader, and Amazon is doing all of this online, so there's no holding cost, there's no shelf space limitations, there's no issue of making sure that everything is displayable. It gives Amazon a huge edge over others. Plus, Amazon also operates not just as a retailer but also as a marketplace where a lot of other sellers can sell through Amazon, which helps Amazon offer more products to its customers, even if it's not earning money through those as much. It is earning through the referrals, but it's not earning as much by direct sales revenue. However, that helps Amazon gain more brand loyalty and brand awareness. Now, if you look at table 9.4, it talks about different retail e-commerce omni-channel integration methods. So there are several ways in which you can actually sell to your consumers. There's online order, and where you order online, but you have to go to a physical store to pick it up. That's one possibility. That's one model of doing things. It's probably one of the first types of integration of combining your physical and online. So think of it this way, that you sit at home, you go to a website, you make an order, but in order to pick up the order doesn't get delivered to you. So the physical business, so any business that's an online retailer as well as a physical one and an omni-channel one, can actually take advantage of using websites in order to allow you to make orders, but you go and you pick them up, so they don't have to go through the hassle of delivering it to you and have to worry about delivering it to you on time. The second category of integrating is when you online order, you have a store directory and an inventory. In other words, and items, when they're out of stock online, the customer is asked to go to a particular physical store and pick it up there or get it from there. That's another way of facilitating your customers. So even if you don't have it available online, you can go, the website actually directs you, tells you which particular store might possibly have it and might actually have it in their inventory. The third possibility is in-store kiosk. This is something Walmart uses. A kiosk is basically a computer terminal or a computer. So you go to a store in order to facilitate the customer, in order to make the best of the physical area, limited physical area that they have. These kind of stores actually have a physical computer right there that you can go through, you can browse through. This is also common even in Pakistan, say in places like Galaxy Computers or even at Computer Zone and several other computer stores where they have a computer that you can go through to look at the inventory that they have. So you can make an online order and you can even get it delivered home. So this is something that a lot of places use as well. Another model is to use in-store retail or clerk online order methodology and home delivery. It is similar to the in-store kiosk method, only in this case there is a person who helps look through the online inventory for you, and if the physical store doesn't have it at that point in time, they will actually deliver it at your place through some other distribution center that they have or another store that they have. So this is similar to the second category where they actually direct you to a physical store. So it's the opposite of that, where instead of going to another physical store yourself to pick it up, your physical store will tell you that we don't have it in this particular store, this particular branch, but it will get delivered to your place later on. Another integration methodology is where you order online and you can do in-store returns or adjustments, which is basically you can make an order online, but if you have a problem with the product, you need to go to the store physically to get anything changed or exchanged if it's a defective one or if you want a refund. Another category is online catalog. It's basically similar to or supports the physical catalog. Physical catalogs are basically, well, book-like forms or even pamphlets which has the list of all the products that they have. So an online catalog is similar to that. It saves you the cost of having to print all those pamphlets or booklets which then get emailed to people, mailed to people physically. So it saves you that amount. So you can go to a website, there's a catalog, you can actually choose what products you want and they get delivered to your place. Another integration type is manufacturers use online promotions to actually convince customers to come to their retail store. So consumer product manufacturers such as Colgate Palmolive or P&G use these online channels in order to create products and to promote their retail sales. So they make their promotions online, but they do their selling physically. Another category is using the gift card or loyalty program methodology, where every time you actually make an order, you actually earn some points that can be redeemed later on for in-store purchases later on. So these loyalty programs actually convince people to visit them physically in store as well. Then there's mobile order or website and physical store sales as well. These apps actually take users to a special category of their websites in order to make those purchases. So they convince you to use mobile apps in order to make purchases online, and those purchases are specially designed for you based on your interest. Yet another example is using your physical location to help you guide to the closest branch. This is extremely useful for restaurants which have several branches. So when you're on the phone and you're looking for the closest pizza place or the closest burger place of a particular food chain that you prefer, they will actually give you the best possible directions of that particular store. So these are some different categories in the ways in which different businesses have actually combined two different models, which is the physical only model and the online only model, and that which comes in between, which is those businesses that were actually physical and have now moved towards the online. Moving to section 9.2, it talks about how you're going to analyze whether your idea of an online firm or an online business is a viable idea or not. So one of the most key viabilities is the economic viability, which is basically whether or not you will be profitable in a particular situation. In order to actually get economic viability, you end up doing what is referred to as two different analyses. One is the strategic analysis and the other is the financial analysis. The strategic analysis has to do with what we've discussed in chapter 2. That has to do with the 5 forces model, the Michael Porter's famous 5 forces model, which talks about the barriers to entry, the power of the suppliers or the bargaining power of suppliers, the bargaining power of customers or consumers, and the existence of any kind of substitute or alternative products or services, and the industry's current competition that is happening, the current conditions of the industry or the firms that are there competing, and how they're actually designed and how the various conditions are, and the nature of how the different firms that are already in the industry are competing with each other. And this is important because if the competition among firms is based on price, is it based on different offerings of different characteristics, you have to understand that before you jump into a business similar to this one. Say for instance you're coming in with the retail business, how exactly are the other retail industry businesses that are already in that market are dealing with their competition, or how exactly are they selling? Are they selling it based on price or any other category? So let's look at each one of these different categories and different factors one by one. Okay, so let's look at each one of these different factors. Barriers to entry refers to how difficult it is for a particular business to enter a particular industry. So This could relate to different patents, different copyright in requirements, maybe even licensing requirements, several other related stuff. Maybe even you require a high capital, maybe you require some special technologies, some special permissions. All of these are barriers to entry. Those firms that are inside that particular market have to try and increase these barriers in order to prevent other new entrants. The threat of new entrants is what they need to prevent. The power of suppliers. Now, it's very easy to understand. If there are a lot of suppliers, a lot of buyers, but the suppliers who are supplying a particular product or providing the particular service are limited, or they control the supply of the raw materials, or they control the fact through a lot of how should we say, the prices, or they control the various things that go into that particular product, they have more bargaining power, they have more power as the suppliers. So can the suppliers in a particular industry, let's say we're talking about retail, so if the suppliers are able to control the prices or are able to control the supply of those products itself into that market, then they obviously have more power, and they can control how the retailers are going to be able to price. For instance, take the book industry. Again, if the publishers decide to increase the price, if they decide to sell at a particular price to the retailer, that is in this case Amazon or even Barnes & Noble or Liberty Books or any other bookstore, then automatically these booksellers, these retailers cannot price it lower than that. That's exactly been the argument between Amazon and various publishers. The same is true for any other digital content as well, be it music, be it videos. If the TV show that a particular production house or a production group is creating and is selling at a certain price, then obviously any channel that's trying to show them cannot reduce the price below that. So this is essentially the power of suppliers. The power of consumers or customers is if the customer can actually choose a different supplier, if they can go to somebody else instead. If there are several suppliers or several sellers or several retailers of a particular product or a particular set of products, then obviously the customer has more choices. If the customer has more choices, they can switch. This is especially true for any kind of product that is commoditized. For instance, books. If Amazon doesn't have a book, I can go buy it from Barnes & Noble, or I could go somewhere else. So if your product is not specialized, if your product is not somehow enhanced by you, then obviously a customer can make a switch. It's easier for a customer to switch from one retailer to another. The existence of substitute products is another factor. So if there are possibilities to buy something else or some other product that can solve that problem, then obviously a retailer will have a lot of problems. So if a retailer realizes that there are alternative products for it, for instance, say cold drinks, or we take any other eatable items, or even books themselves. So if there are alternate possibilities, so if you're a physical bookseller or a retailer, there's always ebooks that are going to be substitutes for your particular physical books. If you are trying to sell audiobooks, there's obviously going to be physical as well as ebooks as an alternative. If you're selling software, there's several alternatives to that too. So how many products or services are alternatives to your offerings now as well as later on? Both of these are important factors. So the industry value chain, how exactly is the entire chain that actually ends up helping create products there? Does it actually help your firm? Are you going to be a part of it? Are you going to be a strong part of it? Are you going to be a kind of a firm that owns most of that value chain? Can you control it? Say, for instance, in Amazon's case, they were able to control it to a degree by making better partnerships with different booksellers and publishers, as well as by developing their in-house printing mechanism in order to print books directly and then sell them. So that's also a factor. And of course, the last factor is how the firms within that industry are competing right now. What exactly is their methodology of competition? Is it based on price? Is it based on offerings? Is it based on value additions and value added services and products? How exactly is the competition changing now? How is it now? How will it change later on? That is going to be a serious concern. The strategic factors related to a firm's related business also include several other things. The firm's value chain, how exactly your particular business or your retailer going to actually manage its operations. How will it actually manage the operations and business processes that it needs to do? What are its core competencies? How exactly will it leverage those core competencies? Is it going to play on the price? Is it able to control the costs that go into making those things? Can other firms actually replicate or recreate those core competencies? Same goes for synergies. Can you actually take your particular business, say you've got multiple subsidiaries, say in the case of Amazon, it has several several subsidiaries. It has Amazon Kindle, while it also has ebooks. So they can make synergies, they can do economies of scope, they can try and sell their books. This is exactly what they did. They created the entire Kindle device for the very purpose of actually being a service that lets people access their books. So can you actually do those synergies? Say, take in the example of say Apple Music. They sell music as well as ebooks and audiobooks on their platform for various of the devices. So can you actually make use of one technology and leverage it for another subsidiary business that you have? Same goes for technology. Can you use the same kind of technology that you have that is proprietary to you, that is specifically to you? Say for instance, Amazon's ability to do fulfillment on time and handle the entire supply chain, even deliver it to the customers. Their ability to do one-click ordering, their customer relationship management, their ability to do customer analytics, and a lot of other technology that we've talked about in more detail in Amazon's specific case bundle. And you can listen to it in the audio recording, and several other social and legal challenges, how you're going to do business in a particular country or a particular market, what exactly are going to be the issues that you have to deal with. Then comes the financial analysis. Of course, the financial analysis is something that you've already been reading and studying about in various finance and accounting courses. So of course, there's revenues are growing at what rate, how experienced are you with respect to being able to manage those the revenue growth, how well can you actually translate those revenues into real profits, what is going to be the cost of each of your sales, the cost of the products that you're selling, all the related cost, all the overhead cost or the operational cost, the gross margin that you have. The firm's gross margin is of course calculated by dividing the gross profits with the net sales revenue. So what exactly is your actual profits that you end up with? The operating expenses, the holding costs, the opportunity costs, the kind of tangible and intangible costs related to various marketing and advertising and promotions, keeping those stocks, maintaining them, keeping the inventory for them, all of that, the spoilage, everything, all of that is the operating expenses. The supply chain, the inventory and logistics related to it, all of it is part of it. The operating margin is calculated by dividing the operating income or the loss by the net sales in revenue. So in other words, this is the actual operating margin. Actually tells you how much of the firm's current operations are being covered using the operating expenses, not including any other interest expenses and other expenses. So then comes net margin, the percentage of its gross sales revenue the firm is able to retain after all of their expenses have been removed. So this is the actual bottom line, so to speak. So this has to be really good. Of course, then we do all of this through a balance sheet. Obviously, we have a balance sheet which shows our current condition, our current financial condition, so that we can look at it. We've already gone through all of these topics in various finance courses, so I will not go into the details. There's assets, there's current assets, there's liabilities, the current liabilities, the long-term debts, the working capital. All of this goes into the balance sheet to tell you a snapshot view of how you're actually leveraging the various sources of your capital, how exactly are they covering, and what exactly are they covering, what are your current liabilities, and how well can you maintain that position in the future. So all of this is related to that. Then we come to 9.3, the e-commerce in action or e-tailing business model. So there are several business models we've already talked about. This is omni-channel merchants, which are businesses that do physical as well as online business selling. There's virtual merchants like Amazon, which do online only, and we call them pure play. The first one, omni-channel, is also called brick and click. And then there's catalog merchants who do it by printing and actually in this case digital catalogs, which is a list of the products that they offer. And then there's manufacture direct, where they sell directly to the buyer. So but let's look at virtual merchants, which is basically e-commerce businesses that generate all of the revenue from online sales only. There's no physical presence, all of it is done online. Then the case about Amazon is presented in this particular book. This is on page number 600 and onwards. I will skip this entire thing because we've already covered this in a separate audio recording, but you should go through this if you want to look at the financials and if you want to look at the entire argument of how Amazon created the way it was, the way it built itself up. So you can look at it and read about it again if you missed out something or if you were unable to understand something that I talked about in that audio recording. So let's come back to our various e-tailing models. So omni-channel merchants, these are bricks and clicks model. These are the businesses that have physical as well as online platforms, and the biggest challenge of these kind of businesses is, of course, trying to maintain a balance between selling the same kind of products online as well as offline. So they do cannibalization. They realize that the products that are selling online will obviously not end up sold offline, and vice versa. However, what they're trying to achieve is more facility, more convenience to the customer. In other words, they're trying to achieve that the products will be available in both platforms. Understand that physical businesses are slowly and gradually going away. I've already talked about it in the beginning of this audio recording. So you need to balance this out, and businesses need to understand this. Then, of course, we have catalog merchants. Catalog merchants are basically these companies that have a national offline lists, and I doubt that these are present in Pakistan, but you'll find a lot of these in the US and several other countries, where they actually have this list of the products that they're offering, and you can actually order these various products online. So through those lists. Then there's manufacturer direct. These could be single or multi-channel manufacturers. What that means is they could actually be selling it through different platforms, and they sell directly through their own websites, through their own physical stores, directly to the consumer. And there are several names that have been mentioned here. There's Apple, there's Dell, there's HP. Dell actually was the one that started the manufacturer, the direct marketing concept, which is where they would sell directly to the customers instead of having various intermediaries such as wholesalers, distributors, and retailers. They obviously have channel conflict, which is where they must balance out between having to sell the same product through other retailers or other distributors and their own websites directly. So they have these two different models, where one is called the supply push model, the other is called demand pull model. The supply push model can easily be understood by understanding the concept of make to stock. In other words, you make a product, you put it in stock, and you do that by anticipating the kind of demand you'll get. There are advantages to it. We've probably discussed that and studied that in supply chain management courses. So the advantage is you can meet demand quite easily without having to run out of the stock. However, the disadvantage is if you're wrong with your forecast, you obviously will probably be left with products that are not selling off, and then you will be incurring heavy holding costs. On the other hand, there's a demand pull model, where the products are not built until and unless required. In other words, you only make to order. You don't make to stock, you make to order. The argument between these two can be understood by the famous newsboy problem, which is essentially an example of making a balance between these two. The idea is, the example says that there's a boy who sells newspapers every day. So if he brings in more newspapers that actually then are actually demanded that morning, he will be left with newspapers that will not get sold. So he will have incurred a loss because he was unable to predict the demand. On the other hand, if he brings less than what ends up being demanded, he will miss out on possible sales. So this is similar to that. So Michael Dell actually created the direct marketing concept and the direct model, where the idea was to improve their operational margins. They wanted to decrease the costs that were being incurred. So during that time, there was HP and there were others computer assembling companies. All of these were actually offering assembled computers, but the point was each one of them was selling them for the same price. Now Dell wanted to actually sell at a lower price so that people would buy from them. So Dell came up with the idea of making customers come to their website, and in that time period to make a phone call and actually order a computer based on their requirements, and then that computer would get delivered directly to the homes of those consumers. That would save the price the cost that would have been incurred had those computers been sold in physical stores or would be sold through distributors and retailers, because then they would have added up their own cost to it. So this actually was how Dell actually went about doing it, and it's a very famous example of direct marketing. Then we come to the concept of the common themes in online retailing. So there are certain themes that are constantly common throughout online retail. One of the first ones is that they have to deal with how exactly they'll be making money. They have to have very efficient inventory and fulfillment systems. And a lot of companies and a lot of retailers have started to understand this concept. In the beginning, this was a huge problem. So companies are able to understand how exactly to do it best. That has been done through mechanized supply chains by several companies. Amazon has been doing it through robotics. Several other companies have been doing it in their different ways. But it is this particular concept of trying to make sure that they are able to keep the prices low by making their operational costs as low as possible as can be. And of course, this is been helped by the overall consumer attitude, which is now focusing more and more towards online. So this is actually an advantage. The second common theme in e-commerce for online retail is disintermediation. They were hoping that this would happen, but this didn't happen. To remind you again, disintermediation is the process by which all middlemen, the distributors, the wholesalers, all those middlemen are removed, and you basically the retailer reaches the consumer directly. So this reduces those overhead costs. However, as much as retailers would have wanted it, as much as e-commerce based retailers or e-tailers would have wanted this did not actually happen. However, this is now slowly and gradually happening over time, and slowly and gradually these manufacturers and these retailers are trying to bypass all of these intermediaries, and in several industries this has already happened. So other than Amazon, all of these physical stores, one of the reasons that these physical stores are probably getting shut down or going away is because these intermediaries are no longer relevant. So a lot of these are going away. So a lot of online retailers are now focusing towards disintermediation, and consumers are welcoming that. The third theme is in order to succeed online, these merchants have to make an integrated environment. They need to connect everything. They need to connect the experience that a consumer has on a website with the experience that they have in the physical store, if they are one of those omni-channel merchants, and the app and everything. They need to feel like it's part of one single business. They need to feel like it's one ecosystem. Amazon has done this really well. Google's done this really well, where they actually have an entire process. For instance, you search for things online, you actually end up seeing results, you end up seeing ads, and you end up going to go and buy from them. You see the same thing happening in Apple. You see the same thing happening in Amazon. However, if a business is unable to create this connection between all of these various processes, these various value additions, then this fails. So this is a common theme happening where they're building ecosystems. I've been talking about, and we've discussed this in the first case bundle, about Amazon Kindle's entire ecosystem and about Apple's music system, and its entire ecosystem. This is exactly how they're working. They create the devices, they create the services associated with it, they create the relationships with the content providers, and they give you a seamless experience. They give you an entire ecosystem to play with. The fourth theme that is common these days is the selling of high-end items and luxury items. Now, notice that this is, of course, not something that is happening in our country, but this is something that is very common happening in other countries. However, this cannot be done without building strong partnerships, and this cannot happen unless you are able to convince those high-value item sellers that you are the best place for these kind of businesses. So another theme in 2016 that is happening is social commerce, or local marketing, or more regionalized marketing of products. And this is, of course, getting better and getting more focused because of how much cell phones and smartphones have become permeated into our society and our usage. So because we are with our phones all the time and location can easily be calculated from it, this has become more common. And this is even getting a lot of traction and interest from a lot of retailers because of social networks, especially because of Facebook. So because of the need and because of the usage of social networks, retailers now understand the importance of electronic word of mouth. They understand how important it is to have an electronic presence on various social networks, and how much the influence these social networks actually have over the buyers and the customers' buying behavior. Then in 9.4 and onwards, we talk about the service sector. Understand that most of the things that are going to be covered in the service sector are mostly related to case bundle number 4, which usually happens after the mates. However, there I will still discuss it. So in the service sector, the intermediaries act as brokers, as transaction brokers. Think of all the examples where you bring the buyer and the seller together. And when I say buyer and seller, I don't mean necessarily of a product. I mean of a particular service. It could be a job portal like LinkedIn, like Monster.com, like Rosie PK, and Berozgar, and it could even be a matrimony.com, like a marriage site, or a dating site like Minder or Tinder, or any of these places that bring two groups of people together. People who are seeking something, people who are willing to offer something. So think of OLX, think of eBay, think of Kemu, think of for instance things like Lamudi and Carmudi. Lamudi is a land selling thing, and Carmudi is about selling cars. It's a marketplace. Essentially, all these transaction brokers are platforms or services that help bring the buyer and the seller, or the service provider and the service taker, together. Elance.com, Upwork, Fiverr, Rent-A-Coder, all of these places help do this. So there's a whole area of online financial services that also provide a lot of service. So there's online banking, there's online brokerage. This will again be discussed a lot in the 6th, if I'm not wrong, or the 7th case study, which is about payment systems. So there are a lot of banks that are now giving a lot of focus there. So there are financial portals that provide consumers with the ability to make comparisons. These comparison sites, as I said, this is going to be in case bundle 4. So all of these comparison sites that give you reviews and comparison, they don't sell any products, they just give you comparisons of different products and different financial products, to be precise. Account aggregations, they help you bring all of your financial, non-financial details together on a single site, so that you're able to look at all of your different accounts and review them, and all of your investments. Online mortgages and lending services, which may not be common in our country, but a lot of businesses across the globe do this. There's online insurance service. A lot of insurance companies also have their apps. They also have their websites where they can give you an estimate of different insurance plans that you could decide to buy. Online real estate, as I was just talking about a little while ago, Zameen.pk, Lamudi, all of these are places, are platforms that allow you to go and purchase land that somebody is selling, or maybe are willing to rent. So these are getting a lot of focus these days. Even in a country like ours, this is expanding. So Zameen.pk, Lamudi, and similar websites allow you to either sell or purchase land or rent places. And this also includes, by the way, Airbnb, which is basically like Karim and Uber, only instead of for cars, you actually end up renting a place to spend the day or spend the night when you're out in another country or another city where you do not want to spend the money for an actual hotel room. You can actually live in a place that somebody is willing to offer, provided you pay the rent. So this is how they work. So there's a group which wants to rent out a place. There's a group that wants to rent out to offer that service. That's what Airbnb offers. Now, online travel services, several websites, especially the airlines and several travel agencies, have popped up that actually do this. There's a whole list of it. There's Travelocity, there's Orbitz, there's Expedia. This is all on table 9.7. There's Priceline, TripAdvisor, lots of places, AA.com. All of these places allow you to create your entire itinerary, your entire vacation plan, entire business travel. So instead of having to go to a travel agent where they would charge you more money, these intermediaries provide an online platform where there are airlines and there are travel agencies and there are tour guides and various hotel and motel owners who provide their information on these websites, and you can actually plan your entire trip, and you can even do the bookings and reservations on a single website, and they just charge you some transaction cost for it. So these are businesses that are gaining ground quite a bit. This is how they essentially work. Then as I talked about online career services. So there's of course LinkedIn, one of the most primary ones. LinkedIn, by the way, has been acquired by Microsoft, so it's changing. There's Monster.com, which was one of the first few online sites in 1994. It helps people find jobs, and employers can actually put up different jobs on this website, while potential employees can actually search for them. There's Career Builder, which is also another famous website. There's Indeed, which is also a job site aggregator. In other words, it brings in a lot of the job possibilities and puts them in one website and opportunities on one such website. Craigslist is also it was similar to eBay, but it also offers a lot of job possibility. Glassdoor, it's a website that is helpful when you want to see the reviews about a particular workplace. If you want to find out how a particular workplace will be like, what the environment is like, you can go and look it up on Glassdoor. All the famous tech companies have reviews there by people who have been working there, so it's anonymous, so you can actually read the reviews of a place that you might want to apply to. So all of these websites are pretty good about that. There's several other examples more specific to a particular industry. There are examples of high level or strategic level or executive level jobs, websites and portals, and we have some in Pakistan as well. We've got Rosie.pk, we've got Monster.com, Berozgar, Naukri.pk, Naukri Junction, several others. All of these are, of course, the various job hunting and job portals and job sites. Social recruiting is something that's started to happen, LinkedIn being one of the most primary one. LinkedIn is like a professional network. Facebook's been coming up with its own professional network as well. So LinkedIn is like a cross between a job hunting site as well as a social network, but it's more of a professional network. So people have been using that very often these days. So a lot of these apps, services have started to come through mobile. So you've got a lot of mobile apps for a lot of these places, including LinkedIn and Monster and Career Builder. And there's a lot of websites that have focused on job searches. Something to note right here is Google's job portal and job searching as well. Google has now started to do Google job searching, on their website. They've started to create a particular platform which is designed to be a job search engine. So it is called Google for Jobs, and it will help people find jobs more specific to their needs. So it's like a mixture of the Google search with something like LinkedIn or even Monster.com. So it helps you find jobs better, and for employers to find better people accordingly. So a lot of data analytics and algorithms have gone into these kind of things. And algorithms, again, I'll repeat, is the set of instructions or steps that are followed to do a particular thing. So a lot of I just mentioned Google search is going into this. So we already know Google's really good with finding good relevant searches. So when that same capability of Google search is included with the ability of Google search to help you find relevant results with possible job opportunities, you'll get better results. The same is true for hiring algorithms as well. I've discussed this in a lot more depth in a special dedicated audio recording for LinkedIn, and you should definitely listen to it if you're interested in this kind of thing. So 9.8, on-demand service companies. Now, on-demand service companies are all of those businesses or platforms that give those services. For instance, Uber, for instance, Khurram, Lyft, all of these services, platforms are places where people are willing to give a certain service and other people are willing to take it. They also mention on table 9.9 Airbnb, which is for, renting out a place. Uber is for transportation. Lyft was the first one in this category for transportation. There are other businesses such as in Pakistan, you got Mazdoor, you got another one that I cannot recall the name of right now. But if I recall it, I'll say it right now. So Sakoon.pk, yes, that's the name. So it helps you find, say for instance, there's a plumber or an electrician, they're willing to give their services, they can register on that website and you can search for them and hire them. So there are several others, like for instance, another business that is talked about in this chapter is Instacart. Instacart is an online grocery store, only it's a little different. It actually is not something that keeps the grocery, but rather is a service that helps you choose what you want from a particular grocery store, and they'll pick it up for you on behalf of you and bring it to your place. This is similar to Food Panda or EToy, only instead of delivering food to you, they deliver groceries to you. There's another business called Washio, which is for laundry. Same goes for various courier services. So you can find a lot of businesses. I should also mention Upwork, which used to be called Elance, which is a website where if you're a programmer or a designer or a developer, you can offer your services there and somebody can come and actually ask you to do a particular task for them, a programming task for them, and you'll be like a freelancer building something for people. So there are several such examples where you can actually do a lot of these platforms. So we'll discuss these in more detail when we do case bundle number 4, which is going to be after your mids probably. And that's pretty much the end of chapter number 9. I hope this would be useful.